Welcome back, everybody. What I want to do tonight is another kind of tips and tricks video. This one for Mage Knight. This is my copy of Mage Knight Ultimate Edition. I have done a kind of storage solution video for this game, but that's about it. And it's been a while since I recently pulled it out off my gaming shelf and said, I want to play some Mage Knight. So I've got it set up here and I've been playing a couple copies. You can see it's kind of spread out all over the place. I just finished a successful game of solo conquest, and I realized, I was like, man, there are a couple things that I really had to search through BGG or YouTube to find the answers for, and couldn't really find the answers, super clear answers, very easily for some things. So these are basically just some tips and tricks for anyone who is getting ready to play Mage Knight, whether for the first time or has been struggling and not figuring it out, feels like they're being unsuccessful, things like that. So again, these are just my tips and tricks for Mage Knight Ultimate Edition. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I want to discuss is that I realize this is an Arkham Horror mat, but it was easy for me to grab when I started setting up Mage Knight a couple days ago. It's nice and big. I don't have a Mage Knight mat, but anyways, please ignore the background of what I'm all about to show you. So again, these are just tips. This is not a tutorial by any means. These are just tips of things that I had to search for on Board Game Geek, go back into the rules and determine. Just things that I wish someone had reminded me of, or I had remembered between my last time getting out Mage Knight and playing it. So these are just kind of general tips to help you be successful, especially in the solo conquest mode. Again, that's mostly what I play. There's so much variety in it that I never feel like it's the same. It's not repetitive. So I mainly play solo, and I play solo conquest. So my number one thing to consider if you are struggling, and I've heard a lot of people worry about wounds and not going after fights and, you know, orcs and mage towers and things like that because they're worried about taking wounds and that filling up your hand, and next thing you know, they're constantly resting and running out of time, things like that. So I have found the best person, especially for beginners, to play with, and my favorite character out of the core set at least, is Arythea. Here's her model. These aren't the best paint jobs in the world, but again, these models all came pre-painted, so for now, she's perfectly fine. But Arythea, she kind of has some cards and some skills that will actually benefit you from having wounds. She has your basic heal cards and things like that in her deck, but a few things I'm going to show you now will actually benefit you from having wounds on hand. And so when I'm playing with Arythea, I don't worry about taking wounds and having wounds in my hand, because in general they're going to come back around and actually be helpful. And the number one thing, I guess we'll just go ahead and cover that, is one of her skills. And pretty much if this skill shows up, I'm taking it no matter what, bar none. In my opinion, this is the best skill she has. And it simply reads, I'll put this down here for you if you want to see it, but it's down here at the bottom. Power of Pain, once a turn. So this is not just once a round, this is every turn you take. You can play one wound card sideways as if it were a non-wound card, but instead of even just getting +1 of whatever, movement, attack, block, you're getting +2. And this is once per turn. This is not once per round, this is once per turn that you actually get this benefit. This means that if you have wound cards in your hand, they actually become like a 2 wild. And when you're finished with it, then you discard it. So it gets it out of your hand, makes room for you to draw more. Really, that right there, if you see this skill come up, Power of Pain, you take it, you don't even think twice about it. So again, this is all with Arythea. She's who I recommend. I think I have some other stuff here. I'm not seeing it at the moment, but things that Arythea can do well with wounds. So it makes you feel like, sorry, I'm just looking through her basic cards here real quick. Yeah, her other, well, anyways, Again, when I'm playing with Arythea, I'm not concerned about taking wounds, and I think that's a lot of people's concern when they first start playing the game is they don't want to take wounds, they want to keep their hand clean, and so they bypass a lot of stuff, especially when you're playing solo and with the timed aspect of, solo conquest is 3 days and 3 nights, so 6 rounds. You really got to beef up quickly so you can take on 2 cities by the end of the time. So the next thing I am going to talk about, and this is, basically I'm going to kind of start at the beginning here, is choosing your tactics cards. This is pretty straightforward, but in case anybody is ever struggling about which tactics cards they want to choose, I rarely worry about going ahead of the dummy player. And since I play solo, it's always going to be random, but there are a couple tactics cards that I just want to point out to anybody, 2 in the day and 3 at night. The 4 and the 6 card, I guess I'll just put them out here at the same time. Again, these are at the, the later end of going, so more than likely the dummy player is going to go before you, but right off the bat, I really like to choose number 4. Your hand size is only 5 at the beginning of the game, and there's a chance that you're not going to be able to have a lot of combos, and so having this, where at the end of your turn, if you have at least 2 cards in hand, you can draw up to a hand limit that's 1 higher. So this is really helpful. This is almost what I always go with as number 1. It's kind of in the middle, and then this one, I usually choose later. Certainly, hopefully it's still available, but a lot of times, later in the game, this one's really nice when you have a big full deck, and this basically gives you a free turn in between you and then all the other players. But in this instance, in solo conquest, you're playing against a dummy player, so you can see exactly when they're going to go out and when they're going to announce end of round. And if you've got a whole big stack of cards left you haven't gotten through and you still have more things you want to do, this card is really great to have on hand and hold it till the end to make sure you get your maximum number of turns in. So 6 and 4, I highly recommend. I always recommend starting with number 4. And then these 3 here are amazing in the night phase. So what I usually like to start with is probably number 4 again, or number 3. I like number 4 in the beginning because, again, you don't have that big of a deck in the beginning. And this allows you, if you get to the end and the dummy player is not about to announce end of turn, but you don't have any cards to draw from, this allows you, if you hold on to this skill, you want to call it, till the end of your turn, or the end of your round, sorry, you can actually pick up 5 cards, and yes, you're shuffling them back into your deed deck, but you know exactly what 5 those are going to be, and then you get to draw 5. So this also helps to create a really big hand if you need to accomplish something. Say you come across an ancient ruins and you're tackling more than one monster at a time, or if you really wanted to hold on to this till the city, but I'm going to cover this in just a second, covering which one I hold on to cities. This one I really like, period. I wish they had something similar to this in the day, but anytime that you can manipulate the mana pool and what you can choose from, if, sometimes you could just, roll all whites. It could happen, and you could have no white cards to play, and you're sitting there and you need attack and you need movement, you're looking for blue and red, and this is once per turn that you can reroll up to 2 mana dice. And again, this one would be useless, but this isn't just one-time event. This is once per turn. You can re-roll what you see, and this is really helpful, especially in solo, because nobody else is rolling the dice. It's just you, and they will just sit there forever. The last one, and I really like to save this one until I am near the end of my game and approaching some cities. This one allows you to be tucking cards, and each turn, again, this is not just once, you can tuck a card under here. You don't get to see what it is, you just blindly take the top card of your deed deck. But what it allows you to do is that when you approach that, say, level 8 city, which is going to be 4 enemies in a level 8 city, you can then reveal all of them, add them to your hand. In the middle of your turn, you don't have a hand limit. Your hand limit only comes into effect when you're drawing at the end of each turn. So you can take everything you stored under here, add it to your hand, and if worst case, it's a +1 of a wild. But it can really give you a nice big hand and actually enable you to take on 3 or 4 enemies all at once, because taking on 3 or 4 enemies all at once takes a lot of cards. So hopefully you have a big hand size to begin with at that point in the game, like at least 6 if not 7. But hoping that this doesn't get picked up by the dummy player, and using this in the end really enables you, this one too could work, enables you to have a big hand when you want to, when you're taking on a city. So those are just some of my recommendations for tactics cards, day and night. I covered my favorite skill and my favorite character to play with. The next thing I guess I want to remind people of is about movement. Now, again, it takes 2 movement to reveal a tile. So say you are sitting here and you have worked your way onto the edge, and you ended your turn here, or even if you start here on the mage tower, you play a move to, now this is a bad example because I'm going to cheat and turn this whole thing like this. Say you moved 2 and then you wanted to reveal, so you played another move 2. Well, then you take out your next card and you've got it right here, and let's just pretend that this settlement is on a green plain space. You can play another, you probably played these 2 cards down to begin with, because you're like, I want to move 2 and I want to reveal, so I need to move 4. I don't have any green mana, so I'm going to play these 2. You get there and then you reveal, and then you see maybe you're hurting with wounds, or you really want to recruit somebody before the end of the round. You can play another card down to move again. Your movement is not one action. Your movement is not an action. It's just like what you do and what you have to do at the beginning of your turn. And your movement is also when you can heal and play your crystal cards and things like that. So you can play cards down, manipulate your model on the map, play more cards down. It basically is not until you say you are doing an interaction, which is either using influence to recruit or using attacks and blocks to attack someone or things like that, that you then are doing your action, and you're just kind of stuck. But there's nothing that says you don't have to predict, ooh, I'm right here, I think I'm going to want to come here, reveal top, and I think I'm going to want to go 2 more, so I'm going to play all of these. Because say this is what you came across and you're like, oh crap, I need 3 to get into here, and I have no more movement, and I don't want to waste a card turning it sideways, and I don't want to go here. You would have wasted this card if you played it all in the beginning. So remember that, just when you're revealing, you can continue playing cards after you have revealed a tile to figure out where you want to go. So again, that's kind of something to keep in mind throughout the whole game. I'm trying to kind of go in order of when you would come across this stuff here. My next thing I'm going to talk about is some of the advanced actions that I basically, if I see, unless there's 2 of these up there, these are what I'm going to pick when I level up on the fame track. One is Magic Talent. This allows you to use a spell from the spell offer as if it was in your hand, and then it just stays in the spell offer. And using the top one, then the only mana you're going to have to use is to commit the spell. But if you've got a crystal you can use and a blue mana you can use, this is actually a free way to get a spell. Normally you pretty much have to go to a mage tower to get a spell, but down here you can see when you play this, you have to pay the blue mana and then pay the mana of the spell you're doing. But then you actually get to add that spell to your discard pile. So the next round, it's there. It's in your hand. It's free. So definitely, if you see Magic Talent, pick it up. Blood Rage. This is another one that with Arythea, I have no problems taking, especially for this bottom one. It's attack 4, but I can take a wound and increase this to attack 9. That's just a huge attack. It's really helpful, to have a single card that can take out some of these huge beefy enemies is just really impressive. Again, I'm already using Arythea, so here's another one that just pairs well with her, is Blood Ritual. You know, you're taking a wound again, but you're getting a red crystal and a mana token of any color. That's really nice. And the bottom one is basically going to give you 3 mana tokens, and you can trade any of those into crystals if you want, or you can use them. So, and again, mana tokens you can use on top of your single mana pool option that you do. So you could actually use, if you use something from the mana pool and then your 3 mana tokens, 4 bottom levels of a card in one turn just by using this one. So Blood Ritual. This one, Steady Tempo. Again, movement is really big in this game. Definitely when you start getting to the core tiles where the cities are, they, you know, the plains and the easy to pass over stuff just disappears. You know, you're looking at swamps and hills and lots of forests. These easy 2 first bases just kind of disappear. So having something that's not only a move 4, but then allows you to put this back on top of your deck, so you're gonna draw it again. And you know, if you in some way can keep blue mana out there, you can basically keep drawing a move 4 over and over and over again. So Steady Tempo is really nice to have, especially if you have another card that allows you to just gain a blue crystal or a blue mana. And this last one is Diplomacy. This one just has some nice influence bonuses, but what I also like about Diplomacy is that you can use your influence as a block. So say you're in an area where you're just doing battle and it's the end of a turn, and so you are not going to have any use for your influence. You can use this and say, you know, I've had it before where let me find it here. I can pair it with this and say you play both of these at the same time. You're like, all right, I'm just not going to be recruiting anybody this turn or anybody anytime soon. You're looking at you know, influence 4, 6, even if you have 2 white crystals or something, block 8. So this is a great way to have additional block in your hands. So Diplomacy is another card that I highly recommend. So those were advanced actions. Let's take a look at some of the spells that I really like. Again, these are focused on Arythea, so she does a lot of try and acquire a lot of red mana with her. Here is Fire Block. I really like the top one here, simply because it gives you a Fire Block 4, and if you successfully block it, which that's the whole point. If you don't block something, then you wasted your cards. You either block it all or you don't block it. You know, you save your cards and you just take the wounds. So a successful block is almost always going to happen if you're using this for block. Then it turns into also a fire attack 4. So it's a block and an attack. Burning Shield, great card to have. Demolish. This one is almost, I pray that this comes out when I play my solo conquest, because when I'm approaching my city, and especially the level 8 one, and I know I'm going to have 4 enemies who are all fortified, and I pretty much am not going to get enough siege attack to take them all out, but I could have ranged attack to take half of them out, range plus siege. Being able to ignore site fortifications this turn, and then enemies get a minus armor, this is huge, especially at the end of the game when you're attacking cities. So Demolish. And the last one, I really love Mana Bolt, simply because as long as you have the crystal to pay for it, it gives you a huge variety, depending on what crystal you pay with or mana you pay with, blue, red, white, or green. It's various levels of attack, siege, range, cold, ice. So if they have resistance to something, or if you need the siege or you need the range, having this card on hand, it just gives you super variety. So those are just 3 of the spells that I really like. Almost done here. Let's see here. Units. So some units that I think are really nice to look for is any unit that allows you to, has block and then counts twice against an attack with swiftness. Let me see if I can find somebody with swiftness here. Okay, so this symbol that looks like a bird right there is, let's see if I can hold it up. There you go. So that symbol with a bird, it kind of from a distance, it looks like this is a guy holding up an umbrella. I just now noticed that. It's kind of funny. But the bottom symbol is paralyzed. It's like a stone statue. So if you come across this guy, anytime swiftness, you actually have to double the attack for your block. So you would have to block 6 instead of just 3. And this guy, to boot, if any of his hit points pass through, he either destroys your unit or he paralyzes you, which means you're done. You can't attack him because his attacks come first. So having somebody who automatically doubles when they double just means, oh, block 4, I'm already blocking 4. Oh, he's got swift. Oh, well, I'm doubling it. So anytime any of these units say counts twice against an attack with swiftness, I really like to bring them in because those blocks come in very, very handy. You know, this is a elite unit, this is a regular unit, so I'm just giving you some examples of that. And the last one is, I think there's at least 2, if not 3, catapults. If you're playing solo conquest where you're attacking cities where people are going to be fortified, try and get yourself a catapult. I know, you know, they don't always come up, but there's enough in the deck that if you open up your core, get to your core tiles soon enough, then your elite start coming out into the offering soon enough. And if you see a catapult, go ahead and get yourself one, because having a siege attack of 5, if you've got the mana for it, is just really nice. It allows you to take out, and that's what was I going to talk about next, was help take out your cities, the people in your city right off the bat. So this, for example, is something you might pull for a level 5 city. So if you play the basic solo conquest, you're not beefing up your cities, you're not reducing the level of your cities. The first city you come across is going to be a level 5, and it's going to be 3 people. The second one's going to be 8, it's going to be 4 people. It's going to be 2 white ones and 2 brown ones. So these are just what I had near me. But you can see here that being in a city, each one of these guys is going to be fortified. So you either need a siege attack to get rid of them. Again, here, you know, if you had siege attack 5, you could just get rid of this guy right off the bat, not even have to worry about blocking him. Again, that is where demolish comes in super handy, because if you had this, you could use siege attack to take out this guy, and then you could do, where are my 2 swiftness cards? You could do 2 swiftness cards, as long as you have the mana for it, to take out this guy with a range 6. Boom, next thing you know, you're only having to block this guy, and you'd better block him, or else he's, you know, ruining your day. But that is something I had to remind myself of. I had to look it up. When you are attacking a city, you are attacking all of them at once. They are attacking you all at once, and they're all fortified. So before you attack a city, I would basically sit there, and if you have to just burn cards, you know, just discarding cards at the end of your turn so you can draw more. Anytime you can have extra draws, things like that, you basically want to be able to have a huge hand when you're taking on cities, so that you can take, because it's going to take 1 or 2 cards to, maybe you'll take out one with a siege attack, and then you're going to have to block. So maybe that's, say, 2 cards to block this guy and 2 cards to block this guy properly. So you're looking at, you know, if you're lucky, 5 cards right there, and then you're going to need 2 more with this guy. So that's 7 and 9. So to do this in one swing would take you 9 cards in hand. That's a rough guesstimate, but that's something to consider, is your hand limit is never 9, but being able to draw some cards, having some cards set aside, having a nice crystal bank ready to go, diverse crystal bank. So just keep that in mind, that that's what happens when you attack a city. You have 3+, 2+, depending on the level, and they all are attacking you at the same time. You know, I had to remind myself to look that up. The next thing that I had to look up, and it actually took me a while, is this guy. And this guy comes either in the Mage Knight Ultimate Edition or the Lost Legion expansion. And I basically just like playing with all the cards. Even if I'm playing just solo conquest, I have this guy in there. to recruit. I just have all the cards and all the tokens in the game. So you can see he's got a lot of symbols here that people from the base game are just not familiar with. So the first one is, actually I'll hold it up here so you guys can see it really well. The first one is that you're going to need to pay a mana to recruit this guy. So that's what this purple symbol is, and the purple is kind of like a universal symbol. So when you recruit him, you need to put a mana of a basic color on this guy, or you can use gold or black. But as soon as you use gold or black, you have to declare that gold or black mana as one of the basic colors. The exclamation point just means that you cannot use skill cards or not tactics cards, artifacts or banners, things like that, advanced actions to recruit him. There are some, like say a banner artifact card that allows you to just recruit somebody directly to you without having to be in a specific area. So magic familiars, you can't just recruit with say a banner artifact. You can, however, recruit them in a magical glade. But again, all of these, so this symbol up here means you need to place a mana on here. Now you can use a mana die from your pool like this. If you use the gold one, it would have to be declared as a red, and then it would stay there for the rest of the round, meaning you don't have it in your pool. Your pool is one die less. But then at the beginning of the next round, you're going to have to put a crystal on this guy. Not a mana die, but a crystal on him, kind of pay him in mana to keep him around, or else he leaves. Now, so keep that in mind. You can pay with a mana from the mana pool. That's what this purple thing is. Purple means put a mana on here when you recruit it, so you have to have the 6 influence, you have to pay a mana, and you can't do it with a banner artifact. But when you have him for a round, and then if you want to keep him around, you have to pay him with a crystal, and what color you choose is what bonus you're going to get here. So if you pay him with a red crystal, if you use the attack 3, it now becomes attack 5. Now, say you only have a red crystal, you pay him with a red crystal, but later on you really need him for a block 4. You can still use him for a block 4, you're just not going to get the +3 bonus because you paid him with the red. And once you pay him with a crystal at the beginning of a round, that one and only crystal stays on him until the end. At the end of the round, that crystal is discarded, and at the beginning of the next round, you're going to have to pay him again. So just keep that in mind. These guys, the first time I saw them, I was like, what in the world? I do not understand. This text down here is not super, I'll just hold it there for a second if anybody wants to read it, but it's not very straightforward, and the rule book is a little confusing on Magic Familiars. So I wish there had been somebody to explain that to me. I had to dig around in BGG, found some excellent resources in there, but again, Magic Familiars. The last thing I just want to remind people, I should have covered this at the beginning when I was talking about movement, is just to remind people that marauding orcs, which are always going to be face up, and dragons are the only ones that you can't walk around. That if you walk next to them and then you try and walk around them, they're going to attack you. Dragons are not to be messed with. All the other ones you can walk around, mage towers, things like that. You can walk up to them, check them out, and if you know you have no chance of defeating them, you can just walk around them. And then these last two, things like, God, what are these called? Layers or something, dungeons or something like that. Adventuring sites is what I'm going for, or ancient ruins, which a lot of times are face up. You can actually step on them and pass over them. You can occupy the space but not walk into the dungeon, or you can occupy the space and not go into the ancient ruins and not try and take on the barracks and the dungeon monster for this one in particular. So just keep that in mind. It's just because they're sitting there, whether they're flipped over or not. Actually, you wouldn't flip this one over until you decide, I'm going to attack it. You enter into the little dungeon, you go down in the dark. But otherwise, you can stand on it and you're just outside it. I'm not really sure, how the ancient ruins works like that, but I do know that you can stand on this tile, even though it represents 2 enemies, and pass through it, pass over it, stop on it, spend the night there, whatever. So just keep that in mind. I should have covered that earlier with my movement, so I apologize. But again, these are just some general tips that I've played now 3 times in the past couple days, and it had been a while since I had gotten the game out, and so I had to refresh myself on some things, and a few things like Magic Familiars here came up for the first time ever, which is one of the really nice things about Mage Knight, is that you can play multiple times in a row and not see the same cards come up. You not see the same spells, the same advanced actions, you'll not see the same recruits. I had not seen this guy in any of my playthroughs of my copy of Ultimate Edition. He was completely new to me until he popped up and I had to look him up. I looked him up in the rulebook. The rulebook wasn't clear, so I had to do some searching. But anyways, that's just a plug for Mage Knight, especially Ultimate Edition, because it all comes together. You get all the content for Mage Knight in one box. It's really amazing. If you are interested in how I store all of this mess, because if I take the time to zoom out here, you can see that there is a lot going on. If you are not familiar with Mage Knight, you can see that there is just a ton of content. So if you are interested in how I store all this, please check out the link that should be appearing up here in the corner right now. Again, thank you for watching. Hopefully this is helpful for anybody getting ready to play Mage Knight. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you enjoy future videos like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.